welcome to the birthday book tag. So it is my birthday on Saturday, and I thought, because I'm quite excited about it and I'm getting in the mood for it, I thought I would try doing the birthday book tag. I've seen a couple of people do this recently. I will link the videos down below. I got the prompts from Scary Reads. I've seen a couple of people doing this recently. I will link a few of my favourites down in the description, so if you would like to see more people doing the birthday book tag, then feel free to check those out. But I thought today I would share my answers to the tag with you, get a little bit of birthday excitement going on. There is going to be another birthday related video going up this week, so I hope you won't get sick of me going on and on about the fact that I'm going to be 25, because it's exciting. It's like a huge chunk of life gone, and makes me a little bit sad, makes me a little bit happy. Well, how else are you supposed to feel around a birthday? But anyway, let's get on with the tag. So the first question is birthday cake. A plot that seems cliché, but you love the book anyway. For this one, my first thought was Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is a book that I haven't talked about on this channel literally ever, but it's in my mind because Nicola Yoon's third novel, Instructions for Dancing, is coming out really soon, so quite a few people have been talking about her writing again. So in Everything Everything, Maddie is allergic to basically everything. She has to live in a house that is effectively a bubble. She's not allowed to leave this house because there is a chance that she could die. But then a boy called Ollie moves in next door and they end up falling in love. And it's very cliche, but it is also like simultaneously feel good and heart-wrenching. But there's just something about this book that I really enjoyed. It has a lot of illustrations throughout it that are done by Nicola's husband, David. And it's been a very long time since I read this one. I read this one, God, like just after it came out. So 2015. So it's been quite a few years. I'm not sure whether I would still love it as much if I read it now, but has some fond memories for me. The next prompt is party guests, and that's your most anticipated book release for the rest of the year. So I've got two answers for this one of which is Under a Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I mentioned this in my anticipated reads video that I did over Bookmas throughout December, and that's the one out of the ones that are left. I've read quite a few of them and some of them have already been released. That's the one that is still upcoming that I am most excited about out of those 10. But I also want to mention a book that I didn't put in that video because when I did that video it didn't have a title and it didn't have a cover, and now it has both and I'm excited about it. And that is A Gathering Midnight by Holly Race. A Gathering Midnight is the sequel to Midnight's Twins, which follows Fern and Ollie King as they discover that their world is split. There is another world in dreams, effectively, where there are people who are kind of guardians of dreams, because if these people don't contain the monsters in dreams, people can die in their sleep. And it's a really fascinating world. It's on the younger end of YA, so it's appropriate for like younger, like older teens, young adults. But I really enjoyed this first book in the series and I'm looking forward to reading the sequel, which is out at the beginning of June. Prompt number 3 is Birthday Presents, which is a book that surprised you with how much you loved it. There has to be one answer for this one, and it has to be Red Rising by P.S. Brown. So I am somebody who, basically up until I read this book, I loved dystopians as long as they were based in our world, because it was easier for me to get my head around it. I loved contemporaries as long as they were based in our world. But I didn't really read a lot of sci-fi and I didn't really read a lot of fantasy because it was just too much for me to get my head around. I couldn't fully enjoy or immerse myself in the stories because I wanted to get the rules of the world straight in my head first. So it was more of like a clinical approach to it rather than just the enjoyment of the story. Red Rising changed everything for me. There's something about Darrow's story that is so inspiring, and it reads like it's a dystopian, but it's on Mars. And there's lots of space battles, and there's lots of action and war and kind of planning and plotting, and there's just so much going on in this series, and I love it. And it just completely changed everything for me. And I read this because everybody was hyping it up and it sounded interesting. I didn't know it was going to become my favourite book of all time. I didn't know it was going to become my favourite series of all time. And I didn't know I would end up talking about it as much as I still do to this day. It's also one of the only books that I've reread over and over and over, and I still enjoy it just as much as the first time every time I pick it up. So this was a huge surprise for me. Question 4 is Happy Birthday Song, which is a book that certainly deserved all of the hype that it got. For this, I've gone for a older hyped book and a newer hyped book, because they're both in my mind quite a lot. They're taking up a lot of real estate in my noggin. The first, which is the older book that deserved the hype, is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. If you don't know anything about this book, I don't know who you are, what are you doing here? Because everybody has heard of or read or experienced this book in some format, whether it's through watching the movie, whether it's through just hearing everybody else gushing about it. This is Star's story. Star's best friend Khalil is shot unarmed by a police officer, and it causes a lot of tension for Star as she has to decide whether to lend her voice to the proceedings against the police officer, and she learns kind of more about the justice system and the way that it treats police officers compared to civilians, and she's got a lot of other things going on as well. But it's just a wonderful story, and I recommend this until the day I die. The more recent hyped book that I would like to recommend is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a King Arthur inspired magical story following a girl called Bree. Her mother passes away in a car accident, but Bree thinks that there's more to it, and she begins to discover this magical world around her and come to terms with the fact that she might have powers that her mother had been hiding from her. I love this. I am so excited to read the sequel when it comes out later in the year. I already want to reread this because I want to see Bree and Sel and Nick all over again, and I'm in awe of Tracy Deonn's writing. This is also one of the only King Arthur retellings that I have loved. I've read quite a few that I haven't enjoyed. This one is so brilliant, so if you're going to pick up a King Arthur retelling, pick up this one because it definitely deserves the hype. Prompt 5 is Happy Music, which is a book with some truly memorable quotes. And I'm not very good at remembering quotes, but I've got 3 books that I would like to mention for this one. One is Looking for Alaska by John Green. It's a very old book. I read it before I had Goodreads, before I had my blog, so I must have read it 2011, 2012 time. But I can remember being so overwhelmed by how much I love this book that I asked my boyfriend at the time to drive me straight to Waterstones so I could buy my own copy because I'd gotten it out of the library. There were none in Waterstones, so I ended up finding a copy in Tesco's, taking it home, highlighting it, rereading it the next day because I loved it so much. As soon as I finished this book, I cried for like 3 hours. So if that's not proof of how memorable some of the quotes in this one are, then I don't know what is. I do worry whether I wouldn't love it as much on a reread, so I have been putting off rereading it, but that is the first one that comes to mind with this. I'd also like to mention Far From You by Tess Sharp, which I can remember jotting down whole chunks of this narrative when I was reading it, and I just didn't want to let this book go. This was also one that I borrowed from the library, and also one that I need to buy and reread because it was so impactful. And I'd also like to mention Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. This is quite a chunky book, but I managed to read it in one day during a coach trip because it was so impactful. And I can remember my phone had died, so I had to really, really carefully fold over the pages so I knew where the quotes were so that I could jot them down when I got home. And I've managed to do it without leaving any fold lines, which I'm really proud of. But I'm not somebody who dog-ears books, so the fact that I was so desperate to keep hold of those quotes shows how much this one impacted me as well. But again, I can't really remember quotes, so I can't open up and read you one out because my brain noggin doesn't work that way. But one day I will try and do a video where I talk about some of my favourite quotes, and I will try and include some of the ones from these 3 books in there. Prompt 6 is Getting Older, which is a book that you read a long time ago, but you think you would appreciate it more if you reread it now. And for that one I have to pick 1984 by George Orwell. I read this either 8 or 9 years ago, and although I enjoyed the plot and I enjoyed the kind of social commentary that George Orwell was making, I thought it was so boring. I wasn't interested in the characters, I wasn't interested in their motivations. I was reading 10 pages in a day and then just leaving it for a week because I just did not want to pick it up again. But that was at a time when I didn't read a lot. I think that whole year I probably read either 10 or 20 books, and now I read 10 to 20 books every single month. So I think this is one that if I did read it now, being a more mature reader, being a faster reader, and having developed my reading tastes to a level where I know what I enjoy and I know I will enjoy this more. I've also recently watched Fit to Be Red's review of this one, and it's just sparked off this little thought in the back of my brain of like, I really need to reread 1984 because how excited he gets when he talks about it. I will link that down in the description as well because it's a brilliant review. And how excited he gets when he talks about it just makes me think about how I feel I would respond to it reading it now. I'm much more politically involved. I'm much more interested in social commentary and in reading classics. So I definitely think this one would be one that I would love as a 25-year-old more than I did as a 17-year-old. And prompt number 7, the final prompt, is Sweet Birthday Memories, which is a book that kept you happy at a sad or trying time of your life. And I want to mention 2 for this. First up, I'd like to mention Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. When Sophia was a few months old, I don't know if I had postnatal depression, but I was very down and I was struggling to come to terms with having a new baby. We were living in a flat that had like the smallest window you've ever seen, and even at the height of midday it still felt like it was midnight, and I was working like a lot. Considering I had a 4-hour contract, I was working like full 39-hour weeks, and it all kind of came to a head and just exhausted me a lot, and it meant that I was really tired. I was sleeping for like an hour and then I was awake all night because I was just so anxious and so uncomfortable in myself. Getting all deep. But it was a really tough time of my life, and I was reading a lot on the library app because of that. I just literally loaded up a book, read like 3/4 of it one night, finished it the next night, then started the next book. And Starry Eyes was one of the books that I found in that time. And Starry Eyes follows a girl called Zori. She is working at her parents' flower shop, I believe. But basically she had this friendship with this guy called Lennon. He betrayed her and they are now arch enemies. But they rekindle their friendship through this summer and it ends up developing into more. And it is just such a light-hearted and heartwarming and just such a cozy read. And I found this copy in a charity shop a couple of months later and I bought it instantly. I was so excited to own a copy of this book, particularly one this beautiful. It's such a stunning cover. But I definitely think this is one that I want to reread sooner rather than later. It is my favourite Jen Bennett book that I've read so far. I've now read, I think, 5 out of 7 of her books. And I haven't loved any of them quite as much as I've loved Zori and Lennon's story, but I am looking forward to picking up more from her in the future, especially because she's always going to have those fond memories in my heart. And the other book I'd like to talk about is the Murder Most Unladylike series. So I started the Murder Most Unladylike series in February 2018, and I gave birth to Sophia in March 2018, and there were 6 books out, including the Queen Buns in Crime. So I read all 6 of these in a month, and I loved them. And they were just so fun, and it made me feel more excited about becoming a parent because I was thinking like, oh god, I can share these stories with my daughter and that will be amazing. And for somebody who hadn't read a lot of middle grade because I thought they were children's books, I worked in a library and I kept looking at these because I loved the covers and I just wanted to pick them up. And then Shelley at Tales from Yesterday picked this as the British Books Challenge Author of the Month. So I decided, well, Robin Stevens is the author of the month. I'm going to read all of her books this month. I have nothing better to do. I'm very, very pregnant. I just want to sit down, put my feet up, read my books. And I was moving in with Sean at the time, and it was really stressful because I was getting these hemiplegic migraines. So I literally felt like I was having a stroke. It's not an enjoyable experience, especially when you're that pregnant. So I had to get lots of blood tests, and I had to be monitored quite closely. And it was just nice to have these to escape into because I could put all of my worries to one side and just go off on an adventure with Hazel and Daisy and see what murder they were going to solve next. And I love the fact that I've been able to reread these with Sean, and I'm so excited about Once Upon a Crime being released in the summer, so I've got a couple more short stories from this series to come. And yeah, this is definitely one that I'm going to be reading again with Sophia when I'm older, and I think they helped me so much at the end of my pregnancy, and that's why I feel so emotionally attached to them still to this day, and I always will. I love these books. And so that was the birthday book tag. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If your birthday is coming up soon, then please do this tag. Let me have a link down in the comments so that I can come and watch your videos. If you've had a birthday recently and you've done this tag, also link it and happy birthday to you. I hope that you will come back later in the week for some more birthday related excitement, because it's not really that exciting. It's more just like me talking about books and saying it's about my birthday, because it means that I've got some kind of tenuous link to creativity, but it's fine. But yes, thank you so much for watching. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, so we'll see you in a couple of days. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a like if you would like to, and we will see you again soon. Bye! Gabby books? Gabby reads? Gabby reads? Either way.